Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, as they say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Today I want to talk about Big Mom and Kaido and discuss whether or not we can or should trust what history has told us, and what this should imply. Now understand, if you think what I just said here is vague, it's meant to be. Let's take this step by step, leading to a conclusion that just seems too obvious. As of right now in One Piece, Luffy and his crew are facing their greatest challenge so far in the story, and it's not hyperbole. Wano arc right now isn't just about defeating the Shogun, Kuroshiro, and half of the great samurai of the country of Wano. It isn't even about defeating them in combination with the Yonko Kaido. No, right now Luffy and allies are tasked with defeating the samurai, Kaido, and Big Mom. All of them at the very same time. As a fandom, I think we are collectively and fairly wondering how it is even possible for them to succeed. I think Zoro says it best in Zou. We are headed for an imminent confrontation with Kaido. And then Sanji goes and gives Big Mom another Yonko the stink eye. It's nothing short of idiocy. The situation as it stands right now is beyond absurd. But as you can probably tell, I'm already starting to get into this, so let's bring this a level down. To be fair, the Straw Hats are already stronger than they were 150 chapters ago, even 20 chapters ago, and they will get stronger still. In a span of less than 100 chapters, Luffy has begun to master both armament and observation haki, to a level that seems comparable to most, or to famous veteran pirates. Luffy has shown us two new forms, Tank Man and Snake Man, which I think is going to play some kind of role. Oda has also placed options in the back pocket, which can be pulled out when he needs to, if he needs to. I'm talking about Awakening here, continual improvements to Gear 4th, or another form altogether. And of course, you know that the Straw Hats are not facing these obstacles alone. They have and will continue to gain more allies. Recently, Zoro has acquired a sword that can be best summed up as a representation of pure destruction. And frankly, we haven't even really seen him go all out yet, since the very beginning of the time skip. What exactly is Zoro already capable of doing is a question in and of itself, let alone how he might improve or grow by the time that he really needs to contribute. And then of course we have Sanji with his shiny new raid suit that, once fully accepted and mastered, I expect could once again put him in the conversation with Zoro and Luffy in terms of combat prowess and success. And of course I think that you could go on down the line to every Straw Hat or ally that is assisting them. You can even talk about somebody like Jinbei, assuming Jinbei actually returns in a state capable of fighting. Just one of those things that I reckon will prove to be huge. Yeah, the Yonkos individually are a force, but remember, we are not just fighting Yonkos in a vacuum. Each of them, and the Shogun included, has layers of subordinate walls that the crew and allies must punch through in order to even reach the main villains and realistically fight them while still at full strength. But the point that I'm trying to make here, which seems fairly self-evident, is that these Straw Hats are getting stronger and will continue to do so. But all of this, and even expecting much, much more, to me, it still doesn't seem like enough. We all, of course, have been reading One Piece for years, over 950 chapters. Every major obstacle the Straw Hats have ever overcome have left them, by the end of it all, victorious or not, battered, bruised, and at the very edge of their limits, mentally and physically. And I think that pretty obviously we should expect the same for any fight that these Straw Hats might have with any Yonko, regardless of whether or not they have a Yonko to fight afterwards. I mean, I think that it's fair to say what Oda seems to be proposing here is, like, after fighting Rob Lucci, the Straw Hats must again face somebody who would be his equal and at full strength. After fighting Gecko Moria, Kuma is actually there to finish the job. After defeating Crocodile, they're only halfway there. At face value, it's just objectively absurd. Based on their portrayal in the story, the Yonko are supposed to be roughly equals. The difficulty in defeating one would be about the same as the difficulty in defeating another, ignoring particular circumstances. Sure, you can make the argument that maybe Kaido is a little bit stronger than Big Mom, or if you just want to be a contrarian, maybe Big Mom is a little bit stronger than Kaido. But at the end of the day, when the two fight, it's clear that the fight would last days. They're roughly equals, even if, after a prolonged battle, one would end up victorious. So hypothetically, if Luffy were to be strong enough to defeat one of these Yonkos easily enough to be able to reasonably and realistically fight another one afterwards, would essentially mean that Luffy is already a head and shoulder above both of them. Again, it just seems absurd. If these Yonko are at full power, there's just no way that Luffy could just shrug off defeating either of them. So I've been taking this at face value. Let's just not. If the Strats are destined to defeat Big Mom and Kaido here in Wano, one after the other, then there of course are avenues Oda could choose to pursue. The first of which that comes to mind is that one Yonko, likely Big Mom and not Kaido, will be severely nerfed to provide a stepping stone to Kaido, and allow the sequence of defeating both to be at least somewhat realistic. Now, full disclosure, this is exactly what I expect, but not quite in the way that I am implying. Let's just speak honestly, the fandom as a whole has not been satisfied with Big Mom's role and portrayal in fights up until this moment. Throughout Whole Cake Island, Oda at various points nerfed her or used the story against her and her crew to allow the Strats to get what they came for and eventually escape. Obviously, Whole Cake Island was not about defeating Big Mom, but Oda had to do a lot in order to prevent what seemed to be an inevitable confrontation. And he had to do a lot to even make it possible for the Strats to be able to escape. And at the end of the day, what was sacrificed in order to make this possible was the portrayal of Big Mom and her crew as Yonkos, as threatening enemies. I think personally that it would be wrong if this was her enduring legacy. At some point, I think Oda needs to just set her free, to be able to act on the story like a Yonko should. A singular force of destruction and mayhem, almost nearly unparalleled in this world of pirates. If the Strats end up beating her in a straight up fight, Luffy versus Big Mom, exchanging blows, built up like all of the greatest fights in One Piece, and she is severely nerfed the entire time, which is how the Strats end up being victorious against her and fit enough to challenge Kaido immediately afterwards, I just don't think that that will be well received. And I think Oda should know that. It would feel cheap and unearned beyond what we would accept. I think Big Mom would forever be the most underwhelming Yonko. Despite how strong she actually is, or could have been, she will never be remembered in that way. As I said earlier, if it comes to pass like this, her legacy will be forever stained. And so maybe it's around this time that somebody might bring up a Big Mom's rage. And so I personally think that a rage is very plausible. I personally expect to see it happen. This just seems like the perfect situation and environment to invoke Big Mom's rages in a country which doesn't have the foods that she wants and the quantities that she wants it. But in my mind, there's a difference from Big Mom raging and that having some influence over the story, and Big Mom's rage being directly responsible for her defeat. Like, she rages, and like we saw on Whole Cake Island, she eventually gets skinny, she gets weaker, and then the Strats defeat her as a villain in that state, and that's Big Mom's defeat in the story. I hope I explained properly the difference there and what a nerf for me really entails. The only way that this works for me, and I've said this more times than anyone can count, is if Big Mom is nerfed so that the Strats can defeat her, but the caveat being that this defeat helps to bring closure to her character arc, her past, relationships with her family, and in grand fashion turn the story right on its head. The idea is that Big Mom is nerfed in large part in order to help the Strats recruit Big Mom for the fight against Kaido. The Strats will help Big Mom discover her own illness, help her understand the damage she is doing to her own family, and realize how far she has strayed from the once idealistic little girl who just wanted people to get along and be friends. So yeah, Big Mom would be nerfed, but she would be nerfed so that she could go out, like somebody like Whitebeard. Whitebeard, in Marineford, he was nerfed. Old and sick, stabbed in the back by his own son. But that in no way detracts from his legacy. All this was a narrative way to help confirm that this story wasn't about Whitebeard. He was always just a piece of it, to help eventually assist Luffy in becoming the Pirate King. But this really isn't where I want to go with this video. I think it is important to say for clarification of where I stand, but to be honest, we've gone one step too far. Instead of finding reason to make Big Mom an ally, let's instead make Kaido her enemy. If we are up against two Yonko and it is just too much, and we're looking for some way to even the scales, let's find reason to destroy this alliance. So let's begin, but I want to clarify though, this needs a disclaimer. A lot of things will be up to interpretation. Just because something seemingly doesn't make sense yet, it could make sense in the future with clarification. Alright, first question. How the hell did this alliance even happen? Like, seriously. Just 40 or so chapters ago, these two were sending each other literal death threats. Big Mom is specifically quoted as saying that, "If I don't take out the strats myself, it'll be a permanent stain on my reputation." But if you and Kaido team up to defeat the strats, then you wouldn't be taking them out yourself, like, right? It'd be a group effort, at least to some degree. Or did Kaido promise to Big Mom that she could have the strats all by herself? Absolutely no intervention whatsoever? But then Kaido explains that he needs to be the one to defeat the strats for everything they did to him. Obviously here, guys, something has to give. Honestly, there are several ways to go with this. On one hand, maybe this is just something that is not as important as we thought it would be. I'm not personally in favor of that. I think that the Yonko have a lot of pride that they wouldn't easily swallow, but it is possible. Maybe in a moment of clarity, both Big Mom and Kaido realize that in the grand scheme of things, Luffy and the strats are not important enough relative to whatever they want to accomplish together. It could also turn out to be what eventually breaks the alliance. Really, guys, this is One Piece. Sometimes characters just aren't very thoughtful. It's just the way that it is. And I don't consider that unusual or concerning. Big Mom may have come to this alliance and completely forgot that they both want to take the strats out. Seriously. And it may literally be something that they never worked out. I could imagine Big Mom and Kaido having the strats against the wall, bickering about who gets the final kill, or who gets credit. But I want to throw another idea in here for just a moment, and this is important because this is basically the point of this video. Maybe the alliance isn't as real as we thought it was. Maybe Big Mom and Kaido really couldn't agree to put aside their personal agendas in order to work together. But we'll get back to this. This has honestly bothered me for quite some time. Big Mom and Kaido are like orange juice and cereal. They just do not go together. What do we know about Big Mom? Big ego, wants the biggest reputation, wants to make the world a better place, doesn't like when people fight or get along, unless of course we're talking about her herself. She values treating people who are loyal to her or listen to her right, wants to create a paradise and become the pirate queen. This is Big Mom in like 2 run-on sentences. Looking at Kaido, Kaido is the world's strongest creature. People say that in a one-on-one fight, you should always bet on him. He wants to destroy the world, cause the greatest war this world has ever seen in order to achieve it. He actively pursues opponents and fights them in the hope that they may be able to kill him or just because he is thirsty for battle, and treats seemingly everyone below him or who he represents or protects quote-unquote like dirt. And lastly, he allows or possibly even purposefully makes the people he rules over suffer and starve. What exactly about their personalities and ambitions actually fits together? It isn't even like similar in any way. We are led to believe that if Kaido were to conquer the world, and we're assuming here that he wants to do it with Big Mom, that this conquered world would be destroyed in the process. Meanwhile, you have Big Mom who also wants to conquer the world, but doesn't want to destroy it in the process. She wants to rule over these people and, in her own way, twisted as it is, enrich their lives. But I think that most significantly, and we're going to end this section with this point, both Kaido and Big Mom are alphas. They are leaders, they are conquerors, they are kings. They're the ones that want to have the power and the say. I really doubt that both could exist together if any sort of disagreement happened. And yeah, I know about rocks, but it's stated explicitly that this basically didn't work. Many of the members fought each other, many of the members killed each other. And I think that it's implied that the only reason they had as much success as they did was because of their captain, Rox D. Zebak. And so I hope I've made this clear enough, but we have here 2 fundamentally different characters being placed together. Disagreement is inevitable. Fallout, in my opinion, is inevitable. It's just a question of when. But anyway, we are looking for ways to sabotage the Big Mom and Kaido alliance. The threat is too large. We don't want Luffy defeating a nerfed Big Mom. At least not as long as Big Mom stays a villain. How can we end this alliance and give the strats a chance to win? I told you at the beginning of this video, history gives us the answer, assuming we trust Big Mom to be consistent. When you actually say it out loud, it's like absurdly obvious. What exactly happened to the last alliance Big Mom made? I know it's been over 100 chapters, our memory is short, but do you guys remember the Vinsmoke? Yeah, honestly, this is pretty much all I would need to say for you to understand what my point is. A complete farce. She lied right to their face. It was all an act to get what she wanted from them, with a little drama thrown in for her own entertainment. Kept it a secret to the very last moment and stabbed them in the back. Really, for what reason should we be trusting this alliance at all? The only thing that I can think of as a counter to this is redundancy. Because we have seen this before, Oda is less likely to choose it again. But if we focus on what we actually know about these characters, their motivations, their ambition, what it is that they are likely to do, this is the obvious answer. If the alliance don't fit, you must acquit. What reason has Big Mom actually gave us to believe that she isn't plotting behind the scenes? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. For me, this just makes a lot of sense. It is actually the smartest thing Big Mom could have done, under these circumstances. Trapped in Kaido's territory with little hope of escape, forced to fight him when everyone says that in a one-on-one fight, you should bet on him. He has his entire crew here and yours is not. Big Mom and Kaido have been rivals for decades. They stand in each other's way. Yet over this period of time, what has Big Mom actually been able to do to Kaido, and vice versa? It's a stalemate. Big Mom is getting older. She can't just wait forever. Eventually she will fall, just like Whitebeard. Her window of opportunity is closing. I would argue she's already past her prime. Her plan to recruit the Giants failed. I doubt she can make any more children. And real talk, it wouldn't matter if she could. She isn't growing any more powerful with respect to her opponents than they are. Yeah, she gained the Germa army, supposedly. We still don't know how all the details of that are going to play out, but she lost Beige and failed to recruit Luffy. Kaido has Smile, more Supernova, one of the most powerful countries, and is still in his prime. If you ask me, it would be prudent for Big Mom to get a little risky. Maybe, guys, just maybe, Big Mom saw a sliver of advantage to be had in making an alliance with Kaido. An alliance that Kaido himself proposed, and over the course of their fight, Big Mom thought about. An alliance she never intended to honor. And when the time is right, she plans to knife him in the back, just like she did with the Vinsmoke, and take from him what he leaves behind to attempt to put herself one step closer to the pirate throne. But yeah, guys, that is pretty much what I had to say today. Just some food for thought. As always, I am curious as to what you guys think. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.